The message from the alien coalition echoed through the empty expanse of space, transmitted to Earth via a series of high-frequency pulses. It was a simple, urgent plea. Help us, or we die. Across Earth, leaders scrambled to analyze the data. A council of top officials, military commanders, and scientists gathered in a secure, underground war room. Captain Marcus Vance, a seasoned commander of the Earth Defense Forces, stood at the head of the table, his fingers steepled as he listened to the alien transmission again. The alien coalition, a union of several species that had coexisted peacefully for centuries, was facing annihilation at the hands of the Dread Empire, an aggressive, ruthless faction that had conquered dozens of worlds using overwhelming force and sheer terror. The aliens' message detailed the extent of their devastation. Their cities burning, fleets shattered, and millions of lives lost. Their military was crumbling, and their only hope was humanity. "I don't like this," General Carter, one of Earth's top strategists, said. His tone was uneasy. "They're begging for help. Desperate. This could be a trap." "We don't know enough to make that assumption," Vance replied, his voice calm but resolute. "What we do know is that the Dread Empire has a long history of destruction. They've wiped out entire civilizations before. If we don't intervene, these species are gone." Vance turned to the screen, where the holographic image of the alien leader flickered into view. The alien, an insectoid species with silver exoskeletons and glowing blue eyes, bowed low before the camera. His voice, though distorted, trembled with fear. "We have nothing left. You are our last hope. Without your intervention, we will fall, and the Dread Empire will turn its sights on Earth next." The words hung in the air, heavy with gravity. Vance studied the alien leader's face, noting the sincerity in his expression, the exhaustion in his posture. It was clear, this wasn't a trick. The aliens were genuinely at their breaking point. "What do we know about their technology?" Vance asked, cutting through the tension. "Can we match the Dread Empire's firepower?" "They're technologically advanced," General Carter answered. "Their weapons are brutal. Their ships can devastate entire planets, but they lack versatility. We've intercepted some of their transmissions, and it's clear they rely heavily on numbers and brute force." Vance nodded. "Good. That gives us an advantage." He turned to the team. "Prepare our fleet. We're going to help them. Not because they asked, but because we can't let this kind of evil spread. Earth isn't just a bystander in this galaxy anymore. We're a force." As the orders were given and preparations began, Vance couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was more than just about saving a group of alien species. Humanity was about to step into a much larger role in the galaxy, a role where their ingenuity, determination, and unpredictability would be tested like never before. He looked out of the war room's window, watching the stars twinkle in the distance. 5 hours, he muttered to himself. In 5 hours, it'll be over. One way or another. The fleet of human ships arrived in the alien system with a quiet hum. Their sleek, imposing silhouettes cut through the dark void like blades. Captain Marcus Vance stood at the helm of the flagship, the Vigilant, watching as the first images of the devastated world appeared on the monitors. It was as if they had entered a graveyard. The planets that made up the alien coalition, once vibrant and bustling with life, were now cold, barren places. Massive craters scarred their surfaces, remnants of bombardments. The skies were thick with smoke, and the air was polluted with the scent of burning cities. A group of alien leaders waited on a communication channel. The screen flickered, and the insectoid leader who had first called for help appeared again, though his form seemed more haggard this time. The light in his eyes flickered with exhaustion, the weight of defeat heavy on his features. "We didn't think you'd come," he said, his voice hoarse. "But we feared you'd be too late." Vance's expression remained stern. "We're here now," he said simply. "We'll do everything we can. But first, tell me everything. I need a full picture." The alien leader hesitated, as if considering how much to reveal. Then, with a deep breath, he began. The Dread Empire's invasion was swift. Their fleet is unlike anything we've ever encountered. Massive, heavily armed, and without mercy. Their ships are designed for one purpose: domination. We tried to fight back, but we were outmatched in every way. They never tire. They never hesitate. They crush everything in their path. And now, they're coming for our last stronghold. The human fleet was in position now, the vast array of ships forming a perimeter around the planet's shattered moon. Vance could see the distant flashes of enemy ships on the outer rim of the system, their monstrous silhouettes visible against the backdrop of a dying sun. The alien leader continued, "We've tried everything. Our armies are decimated. Our fleets are crippled. You must help us before they arrive." Vance leaned forward, studying the tactical readouts on the holomap. The enemy fleet, a towering armada of warships, was indeed closing in. "You're right. We don't have much time," Vance said. "But there's a reason humanity has survived this long. We don't play by the rules. We fight smart." The alien leader blinked in confusion, a ripple of uncertainty running through his antennae. "Smart," he repeated. "We've never fought like this. We've always relied on strength." Vance gave a grim smile. "That's the mistake you made. You've been fighting an enemy that outnumbers you and outguns you. What you need is strategy, creativity. And most importantly, you need to understand that fighting isn't about brute force. It's about knowing your enemy, how they think, how they act, and turning that against them." The alien leader's eyes widened, his gaze flickering to the tactical displays. You can teach us how to fight like you." "We're going to show you," Vance said, his voice unwavering. "But we don't have time to waste. We move now, or everything you fought for will be gone." A long silence hung in the air before the alien leader finally nodded. "Then we'll follow your lead. We place our trust in you, Captain Vance. Leave us." Vance turned to his officers, each one already preparing for the next phase of the plan. "Get ready. We're teaching them how to fight our way." As the ships of the human fleet readied for their first assault, Vance's mind raced. This wasn't just about saving an ally. It was about proving that humanity was something different in the galaxy. They weren't just warriors. They were innovators. And soon, the Dread Empire would learn the hard way that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, but their relentless will to survive. The countdown began. The first wave of attacks was set in motion. The human fleet, a mixture of advanced warships and small, agile vessels, moved in a tight formation around the alien planet's orbit. Captain Vance stood at the center of the command deck, his gaze fixed on the flickering holomap as dozens of alien ships began to take up formation around the human ships, a newfound sense of hope sparking in their hearts. The alien leaders had followed Vance's advice, no longer relying solely on their military might, but learning to adapt, using the new strategies humanity had introduced. Vance had made it clear from the start. Speed and unpredictability were their allies, not brute force. He'd been teaching them human tactics for days, how to outsmart the enemy by exploiting their overconfidence. "We'll hit them where they least expect it," Vance ordered. "But remember, we're not going for a head-on confrontation. We strike fast, hit weak points, and vanish before they can react." One of the alien commanders, still apprehensive, asked, "But our fleets, our ships, they can't compete with the Dread Empire's firepower. They're too strong." "They're strong, yes," Vance replied. "But they're predictable. They rely on overwhelming force. Our advantage is surprise, speed, and the one thing they'll never see coming: us thinking differently than they do." The first strike began as a swift, coordinated attack against one of the Dread Empire's outer supply stations. The humans had analyzed the enemy's patterns and discovered that their fleets left critical supply lines underprotected. It was a gap waiting to be exploited. Human ships, equipped with stealth technology and rapid-firing plasma cannons, slipped past the enemy's primary defensive lines without detection. The alien ships, though not as agile as the humans, followed closely behind, now trusting their new commander's strategies. For the first time in weeks, the alien fleet moved with purpose, guided by the humans' tactics. Vance's voice came over the comms. "We're in position. Hit them now." The coordinated strike was immediate and devastating. Human ships unleashed precise bursts of energy, targeting key structural points on the enemy station. The alien vessels followed suit, using the new tactics they'd learned to disable weapon systems and cripple engines. The Dread Empire's forces were caught off guard, unable to respond quickly enough. Within minutes, the station's defenses were shattered, and the entire complex erupted in a spectacular explosion. But just as quickly, the humans withdrew, disappearing into the vastness of space like shadows, leaving the enemy no time to retaliate. On the ground, the alien commanders watched the feed, stunned by the precision and speed of the attack. They had never seen such a fluid, dynamic approach to warfare. "Did you see that?" one of the alien generals said in awe. They didn't even give them a chance to fight back. It was like a ghost. Vance's voice crackled over the comms again. "That's how we fight. The enemy never sees us coming. We'll do it again, but next time, closer to their heart." The alien leaders exchanged looks of disbelief. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, they were seeing real success. They were winning, not because of strength, but because they were thinking in ways their enemy couldn't even imagine. The victory was small, but it was significant. It was proof that humanity's approach to warfare wasn't just a strategy. It was a philosophy, one that had the potential to change the course of this war. Vance looked over his crew, nodding to each of them in silent approval. "This is just the beginning. We hit them hard, hit them fast, and we do it again and again until they break. We're not here to fight. We're here to win." The victory over the Dread Empire's supply station was only the beginning. The strike had sent shockwaves through the enemy's ranks. For the first time since the war began, they were unsure of themselves. The Dread Empire, a vast and seemingly invincible force, was now facing an enemy that fought differently. Humanity's unpredictable hit-and-run tactics were starting to take a toll. Captain Vance stood in the command center of the Vigilant, eyes focused on the holomap as he watched the alien fleet move with growing confidence. The once scattered and uncoordinated ships of the alien coalition were now operating like a well-oiled machine, following the strategies Vance and his officers had drilled into them. They were becoming more like their human counterparts every day, quick to adapt, swift to strike. "We're ready for the next phase," Vance said, his voice firm. "We've hit their supply lines. We've taken out their forward defenses. Now it's time to target their communication hubs. We hit them where they can't coordinate, where they can't fight back effectively." The alien leaders, now more confident but still hesitant, nodded in agreement. They had begun to understand the power of the human approach. No longer were they relying solely on brute force. They were learning to outthink the enemy, to use deception, feints, and precision strikes. It was a style of combat they had never considered before, but it was proving effective. The next attack was a calculated risk. Vance's plan was to penetrate the Dread Empire's outer defenses and cripple their communication networks. Without reliable communication, their forces would be left in disarray, unable to coordinate their assaults or respond to human strikes. "I want full coordination," Vance ordered, addressing his crew. "We move in, disable their communications, and retreat before they can even process what's happening." The plan went into motion swiftly. The human fleet, along with their alien allies, approached the Dread Empire's communication hub from multiple angles, hiding behind asteroids and using the debris field to their advantage. The humans had taught the aliens how to use their surroundings, how to blend with the environment, just as Earth's military had done for centuries. Stealth, surprise, and timing were key. The Dread Empire's forces never saw them coming. As the human and alien ships entered the enemy's inner defense perimeter, chaos erupted. The human fleet launched high-speed assault waves, targeting key transmitters and energy relays. Alien vessels, now working seamlessly with their human allies, used their newfound tactics to neutralize any defensive threats. They disabled the Dread Empire's long-range weapons, and before the enemy knew what had happened, their communication network was shattered. The Dread Empire's flagship, a towering behemoth at the heart of their fleet, sent out frantic orders to regroup, but it was too late. The sudden loss of communication left them vulnerable, unable to respond in time. "That's it," Vance said, his eyes scanning the feeds. "They're disoriented. Now's our chance." The attack had gone perfectly. The Dread Empire, used to dominating their foes with sheer numbers and firepower, was now in the dark. With their communication lines severed and their forces scattered, they were helpless. Humanity's approach had turned the tide in the most unexpected of ways, by making their enemy lose control of the battlefield. As the human and alien fleets withdrew, Vance allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The enemy had been knocked off balance, and humanity had proven that their methods were more than just effective. They were revolutionary. "Get ready," Vance said to his crew. "The real fight is just beginning." This is where the Dread Empire starts to realize we're not just here to help. We're here to win this war. On our terms. The alien leaders, watching from their ships, exchanged looks of amazement. They could see it now. Humanity wasn't just saving them. They were shaping the course of the entire war, and the enemy would never be the same again. With the Dread Empire's communication lines crippled and their forces scattered, the human and alien fleets gained momentum. The once impenetrable empire was faltering under a barrage of relentless and unpredictable attacks. Their flagship, a massive vessel at the center of their fleet, had begun to retreat, leaving the rest of their forces in disarray. Captain Vance stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, watching the chaotic scenes unfold across the holomap. The Dread Empire's once unified armada was now fragmented, their strategy unraveled, and their response a series of panicked, ineffective attempts to regroup. Every move they made played directly into humanity's hands. "Status update," Vance ordered. "Enemy forces are disorganized," Lieutenant Maya Lee, his chief tactical officer, reported. "Our forces and the alien fleet have been hitting them in waves. They're unable to mount a cohesive defense. Their ships are scattered, and their command structure is in complete chaos." "Good," Vance said, nodding. "We need to keep them on their heels. Target their weak points, engines, shields, anything that'll slow them down. We can't afford them to regroup." He turned to the alien leaders, who had gathered around a large display screen in the command center. Their eyes were wide with awe at the speed with which humanity had turned the tide of battle. It was as if the Dread Empire's entire reputation had been based on the assumption of their own invincibility, and humanity had shattered that myth in mere days. "The Dread Empire thrives on intimidation and overwhelming firepower," Vance continued. "We've shown them that their power means nothing when they can't control the battlefield. Now it's time to push harder." The human fleet, together with their alien allies, pressed forward. The combination of human ingenuity and alien bravery had transformed what was once a hopeless defense into an unstoppable offensive. Human ships struck with precision, evading counterattacks and hitting vital targets on enemy vessels. The alien ships, now fully integrated into the plan, were no longer the inexperienced allies they had once been. They had adapted, learning how to fight with the same ruthless efficiency that humanity had perfected. Vance watched as one of the Dread Empire's largest cruisers began to drift helplessly, its engines disabled, leaving it vulnerable to a final strike. The alien fleet closed in on the disabled ship, using their newfound tactics to finish the job. The cruiser erupted in a fireball, its last moments a testament to the power of unpredictability and calculated aggression. "We've broken their front line," Lieutenant Lee said, as the holomap showed another successful strike. "Their flagship is retreating, and their remaining forces are fragmented." "Excellent," Vance replied. But don't let up. We push forward. We end this now. The shift in the war was undeniable. The Dread Empire, once a symbol of terror, was now crumbling under the relentless assault of human ingenuity and alien cooperation. As the final remnants of the Empire's fleet scattered, the galaxy began to take notice. This was no longer a fight for survival. It was a statement. Humanity had proven that they were more than just another species in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. And the Dread Empire had made the fatal mistake of underestimating them. On the battlefield, the chaos began to fade. For the first time in weeks, there was a quiet calm. Vance allowed himself a brief moment to savor the feeling of victory. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had turned the tide of the war, and the Dread Empire was on the brink of collapse. "We're not done yet," Vance said quietly, turning away from the view of the shattered fleet. "But we've just proven something. The galaxy will never forget this." The Dread Empire was now in full retreat. The once mighty armada had been shattered, its warships disabled or destroyed, its command structure in tatters. For the first time in the war, Captain Vance could see the light at the end of the tunnel. The enemy, crippled by the relentless assault, was desperate, and it was only a matter of time before they completely collapsed. Vance stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, watching the holomap of the battlefield. The Dread Empire's flagship was retreating, but it was clear that their escape was futile. Their fleets were scattered, their communication systems crippled, and their remaining ships were too few to make any meaningful impact. The galaxy had never seen a force fall so quickly, so decisively. "We've broken them," Lieutenant Lee said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Their flagship is down to a skeleton crew, and their remaining forces are barely able to defend themselves." Vance nodded, but his expression remained serious. "We can't stop now. We finish this while we have the advantage." The battle wasn't over yet. The Dread Empire might have been broken, but they were still dangerous. Their leadership was ruthless, and their capacity for destruction remained potent. The human fleet, along with their alien allies, was prepared to deal the final blow, but Vance knew that it had to be swift and decisive. "We need to target the flagship," Vance ordered. "Take it down, and the rest of the fleet will fall apart. Make sure they can't escape or regroup." The alien leaders, who had been watching from their ships, were now fully integrated into the plan. They had adapted quickly, learning the human tactics and understanding that brute force alone would not win the war. Their ships, once uncertain and hesitant, were now an effective fighting force in their own right. They had learned to fight with precision, speed, and stealth, traits that had allowed them to punch through the Dread Empire's once unassailable defenses. "We're ready, Captain," said General Cawthor, the alien commander who had become Vance's right hand in the fight. "The fleet is in position. We're moving in for the final assault." Vance's heart raced as he watched the holomap shift. The Dread Empire's flagship, a gargantuan vessel designed to strike fear into any enemy, was now a target, its once imposing form appearing small and vulnerable in the face of a united, determined force. The flagship was making its final retreat attempt, moving toward the outer reaches of the system. But it was too late. The humans and their alien allies were already on its tail. "Prepare for the final strike," Vance said. "This is it." The human and alien fleets closed in, weaving through debris fields and asteroid belts, their ships invisible to the naked eye. They had learned the Dread Empire's weaknesses, their reliance on overwhelming firepower, their inability to adapt under pressure, and had used that knowledge to gain the upper hand. The Dread Empire's arrogance had led them to believe they could not be defeated, but humanity had shown them otherwise. As they neared the flagship, Vance gave the order, "Launch the attack." The human and alien ships moved as one, their weapons lighting up the dark expanse of space. Blasts of energy slammed into the flagship's defenses, weakening its shields. Within moments, the human fleet's ships closed in, launching their final barrage. The flagship's weapons flickered and died, unable to defend against the precision and sheer overwhelming force of the combined fleets. The flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, the last remnants of the dread Empire's strength gone in a single instant. On the bridge of the Vigilant, Vance stood still for a long moment, watching the explosion on the viewscreen. The battle was over. The dread Empire, once an unstoppable force, had been completely vanquished. Victory, Lieutenant Lee said, her voice a mix of awe and relief. Vance nodded slowly, his gaze still on the fiery remnants of the enemy flagship. It's over. But this is just the beginning. The dread Empire had fallen, but the war had changed the galaxy. Humanity had not only survived, it had become a new power to be reckoned with. Vance knew that Earth's role in the galaxy would never be the same. They had shown the universe that they were a force of innovation, resilience, and intelligence. And no one, not even the greatest empires, would ever forget the day humanity stood its ground. The silence that followed the destruction of the dread Empire's flagship was deafening. For a moment, no one spoke. On the bridge of the Vigilant, Captain Vance stood at the center, his eyes fixed on the shattered remnants of the once mighty fleet. The dread Empire had been reduced to nothing more than debris and fading echoes. The galaxy's most fearsome force was gone. "Captain," Lieutenant Lee said quietly, breaking the silence. "We did it. They're finished." Vance nodded, but there was no triumph in his expression, only the weight of what had just transpired. The battle was over, but the war had left scars on both the galaxy and humanity's soul. The cost of victory was always higher than people realized. "We may have won," Vance replied slowly, "but the damage, the cost is not something we can ignore. There are still broken alliances, shattered worlds, and people who have lost everything." General Cuthar, standing beside Vance, spoke for the first time since the flagship's destruction. "You have brought victory to our people, Captain Vance. We can never repay you for what you've done. The dread Empire is no more, and the galaxy will remember this day." Vance turned to the alien general, his expression softening. "Your people fought well, General. Without you, this victory wouldn't have been possible." Cuthar's eyes gleamed with gratitude. "Our forces would have been lost without your guidance. We did not understand how to fight until we learned from you." The alien leaders who had once doubted humanity now stood side by side with Vance, their faces reflecting a mix of respect and admiration. The tactics that had seemed alien to them, deceptive strikes, guerrilla tactics, rapid retreat, were now second nature. Humanity had reshaped their understanding of warfare and strategy. The alliance had proven stronger than anyone could have predicted. "We need to rebuild," Vance said, looking over the damaged fleets. "The victory is ours, but we can't afford to be complacent. The dread Empire might be gone, but there are still enemies out there, and the galaxy is full of fractures that need mending." General Cuthar nodded. "We will rebuild, Captain. Our worlds may be scarred, but we will recover. And we will not forget the lesson you taught us. It is not brute force that wins battles, but the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to fight with purpose." Vance's eyes turned to the view of space beyond the bridge window. The stars glimmered coldly, distant, and unmoving. The victory they had won was monumental, but there was so much more to be done. The galaxy was vast, and now humanity had a place in it, not as just another species, but as a powerful force that could shape its future. "This is the start of something new," Vance murmured. "Not just for humanity, but for all of us." Back on Earth, the news of the victory spread like wildfire. The world watched in awe as humanity stood tall, not just as survivors of a war, but as victors, respected and feared across the stars. The dread Empire, once the terror of the galaxy, was no more. And in its place, a new era was dawning. A time where humanity's resolve would be tested, but also where its potential was limitless. The galaxy had learned one invaluable lesson: never underestimate humanity. In the weeks that followed the fall of the dread Empire, the galaxy began to change. The smoke of war had barely settled, but already the rebuilding had begun. The destruction left in the wake of the Empire's collapse was immense, and the work to restore balance would take years, perhaps even decades. But the defeat of the Dread Empire had opened new doors that humanity had never before considered. Captain Vance stood on the balcony of the newly established Galactic Peace Summit, overlooking a vast, bustling city that had sprung to life on the planet of Tirena. It had once been a battlefield, its surface scarred by the brutal assaults of the war, but now it was becoming a symbol of the future, a new hub for diplomacy, cooperation, and rebirth. Next to him stood General Cawthor, who had remained a constant ally throughout the war. Their alliance, once born out of necessity, had blossomed into mutual respect. Both of them understood now that the fight wasn't over. It was only the beginning of a much larger journey. "Strange, isn't it?" Vance said, watching a parade of ships, human, alien, and those from former Dread Empire territories, enter the city's orbit. "Just a few months ago, we were enemies. Now we're standing side by side, building something bigger than ourselves." Cawthor nodded slowly. "The galaxy is not what it was before. There is still much healing to do. But this new alliance, this is the beginning of something unprecedented, perhaps even greater than what we imagined." Indeed, the war had left a scar on every planet, every race. The galaxy had seen its share of violence and bloodshed, but the defeat of the Dread Empire had united species that once viewed one another with suspicion or outright hostility. Through their collaboration, they had learned that the strength of their unity was far greater than any weapon. As the summit convened, the first representatives from the allied factions, human, alien, and former Dread Empire worlds, took their seats around a massive circular table. It was symbolic, a new way of thinking, where every voice would matter, and peace would be forged not through dominance, but cooperation. Vance walked into the room, flanked by Cawthor and several human diplomats. He felt the weight of the moment. What had started as a series of tactical strikes had transformed into a movement that could shape the future of the entire galaxy. The Dread Empire's terror had been extinguished, and in its place, a new form of leadership was emerging. Humanity, once an isolated species on a small planet, had proven that with ingenuity, resilience, and a willingness to adapt, even the most powerful empires could be toppled. Captain Vance, one of the alien representatives from the newly formed coalition, said as he stood to greet him, "Your people have shown the galaxy a new path. Your victory isn't just one of military might, but of heart, and we are grateful." Vance smiled, but the words held weight. "We didn't do this alone. We've all suffered. But together, we will rebuild, and this galaxy will be stronger for it." As the discussions began, Vance couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism for the first time since the war began. The past was written in scars, but the future was unwritten, and it was a future they could shape together. The Dread Empire may have fallen, but humanity had ascended. The galaxy had been forever changed, and the universe now understood that humanity would never again be underestimated. They had proven their worth, not with strength, but with courage, strategy, and a willingness to build something better. A new dawn had come to the galaxy, and humanity had earned its place in it.